Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Tommo, and welcome to a bit of a news, one individual story, specific story I want to talk about today. You've seen it in the title, you've seen it in the thumbnail, you've seen it in Minton's beautiful eyes. I thought I've not bring him on stream for a while, so say hello to everyone, Minton. You're the goodest boy, aren't you? He's had a good kip this morning. Just dragged him out of bed. I'll relinquish him back to his mother soon, who's working in the other room. Look at him, everyone. Now, of course, some of you will be audio only, Apple Podcast, Spotify. You won't be able to see the shear, so maybe this is one of those where you watch it on YouTube, right? Which you can, of course, watch after the fact. Although Minton will be going down soon because I can see he's already getting a little bit fidgety. Aren't you, mate? Right. Say hello to everyone. Say hello to Xander, Philip, Stephen, SF, Ducky, Alex, Nathan, Blue, you, Emilio, Vroom Vroom, Difficult, Bosh. Right. I'm going to let him go. Say bye to your loyal, adoring fans, Minton. Ciao, ciao. Farewell. Adios. Bon voyage. Off you trot. Lovely jubbly. Right. Excellent. Good vibes to start the stream off. A little bit of Minton content. Thank you all for joining. Let's talk about it, shall we? Let's talk about the story that it's bumbled along the last kind of week or so, and it's not really been picked up, but there's been a bit of interesting back and forth between quite prominent individuals in the Formula One space. How the rules have changed, which isn't unusual. It's not unusual for the FIA and Formula One, but this is through the FIA. This is all technical regulations chat that we're going into here, okay? So I want to do my best to explain the situation first and foremost. So speak amongst yourselves, chat. Why am I so red? I ask myself that question every day, ALV. You speak amongst yourselves. I'll do my best to kind of cover over what has happened, the source that has been spilt. I'll give my opinion. We'll look at yours. There's also some interesting, because some of the timelines that I'm seeing being talked about don't seem to add up. Oh yeah, SF, the rule banning, criticising the FIA. Not even going to touch on. Maybe I would touch on that at the end, but that's pretty brazy, isn't it? Ben Sulayem basically put a statement out being like, you can't criticise the FIA because it encourages online toxicity, which, like, okay, it does, I guess, but also just by like banning any drivers, you can't just allow the rule makers to go do what they want and not have any repercussions in terms of no one deserves to be abused online, of course not. But when people make bad decisions, it's like when you're not allowed to criticize referees in football. It's a bit much, but anyway, we'll maybe touch on that later on. But that's a separate story to this, but still FIA related first and foremost. So this kind of came, and where I first saw it, the man in the thumbnail, Peter Windsor, dropped this tweet. This was last week, alleging that, looks as though Rebel Racing might have been running a clever rear cross brake inertia valve before they were obliged to remove it before Miami. This could explain Max's brake drama in Melbourne and his turning grief since China. Okay, so there has been. We know that Max had his brake issue in Australia. He's struggled to turn in. He's said multiple times across multiple different races that he's been struggling getting the car in, struggling, not so confident and happy on the brakes. So this was the original tweet from Peter Windsor. Okay, alleging that something's changed, something's happened, something's been, adjusted in the rules. Again, he's saying obliged to remove it before Miami. So before round 6, I want to say, of this 2024 Formula One World Championship. So this was then, backed up. This was then followed up by Craig Scarborough, Craig Scarborough is a very... and by the way, if you don't know Peter Windsor, he used to work in F1 back in the day. He's got a YouTube channel, does numbers now. But he was part of the US F1 bid, I think. He's worked in comms for numerous different teams over the years. Benetton, he knows a lot of people. He speaks his mind, and just like anyone, sometimes you agree, sometimes you disagree. But he dropped this. Then Craig Scarborough Technical Man, and that's definitely the wrong image, this one, followed it up with a tweet saying, this makes sense and is underlined by the tech reg change, the return of Newey fiddle brake, but automatic and creating a turn-in movement with the rear brakes. Simple weighted valve in the rear brake splitter could do this, blah, blah, blah. Right, okay. So let me explain in simple Tommo terms, because this is what I do, right? I like to try and break things down and explain them in the simplest way possible. We've got a few. These are all from Craig as well. These are all Craig's images that he supplemented his post with. So what the suggestion, the alleged piece of technology that's been used in a Formula One car that has now been outlawed with a change in the naming of the regs is that the brake torque, the brake pressure from left to right, there is a system that allows that to change. So again, think about it like your differential in a car, okay? So when you're turning to the right, you want the left back wheel, for example, right? When you've got rear drive car, or even front wheel as well. You want the left wheels to turn quicker because they're covering a longer distance. And the same reason like the Olympics, right? When you've got the multiple lanes, the people on the outside lane start a lot further ahead because they've got to cover more distance than the people on the inside who start further behind. And then they catch up. Bosh, lovely jubbly. And I'm sorry if it's lagging. There's literally nothing I can do. Everything seems fine on my end, so I'm just going to crack on. So that's essentially how it works on a differential, and that's, of course, when you're putting power down. The same kind of applies when you brake. If you're braking and turning, ideally you want different rates of braking from left to right because the inside wheel is going to be decelerating at a different rate to the outside wheel if you are turning. So essentially, this is some automated system where it says G-sensitive splitter. This is what Craig Scarborough's put together as his version, I guess, of what could be going on here. Okay, this is his example of how this kind of system could work. This isn't definitely what has been being used by one of the teams, but this is his interpretation of how that could work. So obviously the G-force, when you're turning in, that can then make this splitter move, and then that can, change the rate at which brake pressure is applied left to right automatically. No interference needed from the driver. The driver just drives the car as per, and then this system just does the job and helps turn in, of course, because if you've got the inside wheel braking more, then that can help turn in as well. So this is kind of, when it comes to tyre management over the course of a race as well, if you've got different brake pressures left to right, that should, in theory, also help because it is going to reduce slip. But yeah, so this is the system that is alleged by both Peter Windsor and Craig Scarborough to have been used by one of the Formula One teams. And again, in Peter's tweet, Rebel Racing, he very much names. So that's the kind of simplistic version of what's going on here. Now, to that tweet, of course, like I say, Craig replied, but also Callum replied. F1 Mech, of course, works for Rebel Racing, is part of the pit crew, has been for a very long time, and says, yeah, this is BS, unsurprisingly. So he's not having any of it. He's seen this tweet from Peter. He thinks it's BS. And, well, you would think, who's in the know, right? Does he design the car? No. But is he one of the most senior mechanics in the Rebel Racing team and has been for many a year? He has. So I've got a few replies. I pulled a few replies here that he replied to. Someone was like, "Oh, your boss is okay with you coming under post confirming or denying stuff, blah blah blah." And it was like, actually the only reason I care about this stuff is because really people should just be giving the other teams the credit they deserve for putting in the work and catching up. Not everything has to be some big conspiracy. And another one said, "Scarbs doesn't think it is. What makes you say so? I've been building the car for the last 14 races. He hasn't." Which is a very good reply, Callum. I like that one. That was very good. Now, of course, as you say, ACOT in the chat, Callum has to protect Red Bull, though. It's his job. Which, well, no, he doesn't have to go on Twitter and reply to these things. That's not his job. His job is to I don't think his job is to fight for Red Bull on Twitter. I don't think that's in his... It could be in his contract. I don't know, okay? I don't know. But either way, Callum wasn't having any of it. So, that leaves us at a... Well, there's a couple of questions, okay? First of all, how does the timeline work, right? Because, well, this is... There's been 2 changes in the FIA regulations, okay? The technical regulations. And there's the issue 6 one I've got here on screen. If you're audio only, I'll try my best to explain this. So, issue 6 is after the Chinese Grand Prix, round 5, before Miami Grand Prix, round 6. And this is when it is alleged by Peter Windsor, if we go back to his tweet, they were obliged to remove it before Miami. So that indicates, so after China, but before Miami. And that is, of course, where Lando won the race in Miami, and that's where things have started to cook. But then there was another change to the regulations, issue 7, in this kind of break, right, where we are now between Belgium and Zandvoort, right, yet to come. So I was like, hang on, right, I need to validate some of these timings. So first of all, I'm going to get some documentation up here. So here we have, this was published on the 30th of April. So this is the update to the technical regulations, issue 6. So again, this is issue 6 here. So this was posted on the FIA website. I got from the source myself, between the Chinese and the Miami Grand Prix, between 5 and 6. Okay. So this document here, and you see in pink text, I don't know why they've chosen to use Calibri. It's like the worst font. Please change your font, FIA. This is such a dead font. That was the first thing that kind of bothered me. But either way, right? This is a huge document. It is 178 pages long. Okay? So this is the first round of the document. And you can see it says here, pink text, changes approved by the World Motorsport Council on the 30th of April 2024. So, if, as Peter Windsor said, Red Bull were obliged to remove it before Miami, well, the timeline, 21st of April was the Chinese Grand Prix, 5th of May was the Miami Grand Prix. Okay, and then this document was published on the 30th of April. So again, this was published between China and Miami. Well, we go down to page 94. I'm just going to scroll down on the slide. Bosh. Article 11, brake system. And as you can see, there is... Oh, God, I've done that right. There we go. Right. Brake system, right, talks about stuff, right, and, oh, this is... any change, modulation, the brake system, right? There's no pink text here, which is the most the thing that stands out most to me, right? There's no pink text here in the whole, right? We're now at Article 12, right? Article 11, when this was changed on the 30th of April, right, between China and Miami, nothing was added to Article 11 brake system at all, okay? So, then, again, 30th of April 2024. Right, let's go back to the timeline. Issue 7, between the Belgian Grand Prix and the Dutch Grand Prix. Okay? Which means then, we come back to issue 7, published on the 31st of July 2024. And once again, pink text, changes approved by the World Motorsport Council on the 31st of July 2024. Let's go back to page 94, right? Page 94, Bosch. Article 11 brake system. What is this? What is this pink text going on here? So, added to Article 11.1.2, the brake system must be designed so that within each circuit, the forces applied to the brake pads are the same magnitude and act as opposing pairs on a given brake disc. That was already there. That's not in pink. Then the bit in pink, any system or mechanism which can provide systematically or intentionally asymmetric braking torques for a given axle is forbidden. Okay. Now again, this is the article that was posted most recently. Okay, this was posted the issue, on the 31st of July. But the one on the 30th of April, again, go back to page 94 on the 30th of April. This 11.2 is like this. It's exactly the same, but there is no added line here. There is no added line here. So, what does this mean? Well, if we go back to Peter's original tweet, running cross-brake inertia valve, obliged to remove before Miami. So that tells me that if that is true, if what Peter said here is true, they were not obliged within the technical regulations to remove anything before Miami. Because when the technical regulations were updated on the 30th of April, nothing about the brake system was mentioned. Again, I'll go back to the document, right? So this is the one, this is issue 6, 30th of April. And there are some changes here. If you scroll through, hang on, let me try and find one. There's not many, but there's nothing to do with the braking. I mean, there's hard. If I see pink, I'll try and stop. There's not like an easy way to just search pink text. I mean, I literally can't find. When I was looking through earlier, there were like, I did see a couple. Oh, here we go. We've got a few here, right? So this is what it can look like. Okay, this is all about cameras and camera housings, which who cares, right? They cross stuff out, they add stuff in, blah blah blah, right? This is how it can look, okay? But there's nothing about the braking system. So take of that what you will. Again, this is issue 6, and then issue 7, page 94, adds this line. Now, what that does tell you, surely, I think this is just a safe assumption, right? The fact that they've added this line indicates that somebody did have a system or mechanism which can produce systematically or intentionally asymmetric braking torques for a given axle. Otherwise, why would they add it? Why would they add this clarification? Why would they? It's a, and this is where it comes back to the whole cheating accusation, right? Because if it was cheating, why would they need to add a line to the rules? Therefore, I think by definition, whichever team has been doing this can't have been cheating, because they wouldn't need to add a line to the rules. If it was already stipulated in the rules that it was clearly against the rules, you wouldn't need to add a line. Okay? But yeah, this is the line that's got all of the everyone talking. Okay, excellent. Right, I think we're doing good here. We're cooking. Okay, we're cooking. So, obviously, Peter accused Red Bull, and the evidence. Is there evidence? Well, again, Max in Australia had a interesting brake issue with the rear right, I believe, wasn't it? Has talked at length, be that in Miami, be that numerous other Grand Prix, about struggling to turn in, which was the Grand Prix where it was like, I'm trying -5 brake bias and I still can't get to turn in. Was that Hungary or something? I'm not sure. And yeah, sure, tuner, maybe it was brake cooling, but there are instances where brakes have been an issue and turning has been an issue for Red Bull. Is it evidence? No. This is all circumstantial. This is all circumstantial stuff, okay? But, again, when you look at this document, the need to add this line, I do think the most logical team to jump to, because it's not going to be a team at the back, like a Sauber or Williams, because, well, I mean, it's unlikely. You know, who's going to bring it up? Why are they going to be, like... You would think for something like this, it's going to be a team towards the front. And there has been numerous examples of Max talking in before it's Sauber. Maybe it is Yo-Yo, maybe. There's been numerous examples. Again, circumstantial evidence that that it's most likely Red Bull. It could be McLaren. It could be Ferrari. It could be Mercedes. It could be Aston Martin. But then I think we come back to... Because the thing that has... Like, this is all quite interesting, right? And I find it interesting. But then you get to the stage where, and I've already said, I don't think whichever team has used this system, which I think it's fair to assume that a team has been using it, otherwise why would they add this line? Is it cheating? Because we have seen cheating before, and back to Exhibit A, Ferrari 2019 fuel flow meter. The TLDR is that they were running an illegal level of fuel flow, but they had a system in place which meant that the FIA's system of measuring was unable to detect this increase in fuel flow in the Ferrari. Now, to me, and this has all been like hush-hushed and nothing's been clarified and absolutely like given as fact, okay? To me, knowing, what the alleged, if the alleged accusation is correct, then that was 100% cheating, because you are literally circumventing the way of measuring the fuel flow. Their fuel flow was illegal if the alleged is correct. The fuel flow was illegal, and then they just found a way of getting around the measurement. Okay. Now this is clear and obvious cheating. But then, what about when Aston Martin at the start of these new regulations I should have put some pictures. They got those. They extended the curvature so they could essentially have on the rear wing. They could have like the side bits, whatever they're called, because they could extend the curvature. And technically within the regulations, even though it was then outlawed and then were told, no, you can't do that, and they changed the wording. Was that cheating by Aston Martin? No. It was within the writing of the regulations. Was Mercedes, when they brought that little thin front wing, the most closest to the nose bit, that little tiny little line, just to technically have a flap there, but in the spirit of the rules, no. Now, of course, for Aston Martin and Mercedes, those two things that were clearly, and that's the thing, they're very visual things. This whole brake system thing is all hidden away. But those things are very visual, right? So everyone can see it, and everyone can be like, okay, they are legal. That they were both legal within the rules. But the FIA then, at least, I don't even know if they did with the Mercedes one, but with the Aston Martin one, they definitely did. Like, they changed the wording of the rules to stop any other teams trying it. And Aston Martin basically went with it. And who knows, maybe it would have M-plate. There you go, thank you. Who knows whether that would have actually delivered, performance down the line, right? If they'd have not changed the wording of the rules to stipulate against creating these M-plates. But those Aston Martin and Mercedes were not cheating. They were pushing the wording of the regulations, which is what this sport has always done. This example with Ferrari, if that's what happened, that's cheating. No question, right? Because they literally had illegal fuel flow. And then they just found a way to not get it caught, basically. But what Aston did, what Mercedes did, and what most likely, if I had to put money on it, I would say that Red Bull have been running this asymmetric braking system. I don't know that. But looking at the broad scope of the fact that at least one team almost certainly has been doing it, and the issues Red Bull have had, and blah blah blah. I don't think Peter's completely pulling it out of his bum, but regardless, whoever's done it, I don't think that's cheating either. And I think to call it cheating is really like missing the point of what F1 is, I guess, because we want these teams to push the boundaries. We want these teams to. That's part of the sport, the technical challenge. And when you're writing the regulations, the 2026 regulations, they're going to be locked in pretty soon. You can't stipulate for anything, and teams are going to find a way to push the Because of course they're obliged to. If these teams aren't pushing at the absolute finite letter of the rule and sometimes overstepping it, then they're not trying hard enough, because all the other 9 teams are going to do that. Okay, if you're sitting there being, oh no, we can't get anywhere near the edge of the ruling of the words, you're going to finish last. That is going to happen. It's your job as a team to make the FIA's job difficult, to give them these little quandaries where, oh, is that in the writing of the regulations, or could it be interpreted like this, like that? That's the game. That is the game, and that is how the game has always been. Das, great example, right? Das, Mercedes brought it in, and in the way the rules were written at that moment, Das was legal. But then they brought it in, and the FIA, and I think fair, because I think let them have it for the rest of the year, but then change the ruling for 21 that takes Das off the car. Because then you're just adding, like, that wasn't something that, and this is where it comes to the spirit of the rules, that kind of system was never intended by the rule makers to be a thing. But Mercedes saw an opportunity, they saw a gap in the wording of the rules, and they exploited it, created Das. Genius, right? And I think they deserved to see the advantage of it for a point. But then the problem with just leaving it legal is that then other teams are going to be spending money trying to catch up. And it's just like, actually, well done. You can have your cake, you can eat it, but then we're taking it away, right? Before you finish it, I guess. Yeah, I suppose so. And there's loads of examples of it. But Mercedes did not hide it. Who's suggesting Das was literally, we could see Das on the onboard camera. You could see Lewis and Valtteri, literally the wheel moving, right? As soon as Mercedes implemented that onto the car, they knew the world would find out that, oh, hang on a second, why is that wheel going front and back? But with this brake thing, whoever's had it, there's no visible way of seeing it. And that's why I say the same about the Aston Martin end plates. Very, very clear and obvious. Oh my God, look at that. Wow. The Mercedes front wing little thing, right? And there's going to be plenty of other things that haven't really come to the light of day, that, small, tiny things that we wouldn't have picked up watching the feeds, and only the technical delegates from the FIA, Joe Bauer and his team, would actually identify. So, yeah, and look, we don't know, we don't know how long whichever team has been running this brake thing. Again, I come back to this, okay? I think one of the few things we can say is that somebody has been running this system. Otherwise, why would you add this? There is no reason to add this line unless someone's been doing it. And it is now no longer allowed. However, again, when you look at the timeline and you look at, it doesn't add up, at least from a technical regulation point of view, because this was the technical regulation change on the 30th of April before Miami, and there is nothing in here. This is the whole brake system. This is it. It's just over a page on brake system, and there's nothing about this here. So we don't know. The long and the short of it is we do not know. But yeah, what do you lot think? Again, for me, it's fair game. And I think whichever team's done it, fair play. I think it is probably Red Bull. The circumstantial evidence seems to point towards that. And good for them. It's those kind of, at the end of the day, right, Red Bull have been broadly dominant in the ground effect era because of technical innovation. And if this has been part of that, then credit to them, And maybe it's taken this long, who knows how long it's been on the car for, right? Whichever car it may be. But again, it's not something that's really blatantly obvious from the outside looking in. So it's hard for any of us to comment on whether it could or should have been picked up earlier. But it's clearly not illegal and it's clearly not cheating. because otherwise they wouldn't need to change the wording of the rules to then make it forbidden, you know? Forbidden. Just got it. Can you restart? Sure, Philip. Of course I can. But yeah, there we go. That is kind of all I really wanted to talk about today. Big week coming up now. Zandvoort Grand Prix this weekend. Very excited for that. Couple of things. So I've on my community page on YouTube, and I shared it on Twitter as well. I've got a little poll for you lot to do. If you haven't done it already, basically I'm going to do like second half of the season predictions. I've got like, you know, most wins, most poles, best driver, worst driver, best team, worst team, basically. I want you to vote on them. Also, there's another community post where I'm just looking for just any particular specific predictions you have. So if you can drop them once you've done with this video, I'm going to start working on that pretty soon. So I'll probably close the poll fairly. I can probably keep the poll going for a bit, maybe the rest of today. But yeah, get on that if you can. We'd much appreciate your insight. Thank you, A350, for the super chat. Let's wait till this weekend when changes come into effect. As someone in the paddock, there are whispers. But again, it will be interesting to see, because again, in the nothing changed about brakes in the regulations between China and Miami. I've just shown you that. Nothing changed in the regulations. So were Red Bull just told, like, and again, this is assuming it's Red Bull, because I think it probably was, were they just told, like, oh, you can have it until mid-season break, and then you got to get off? It's just a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge, maybe. Which, I mean, but I think it all just comes down to just transparency, doesn't it? I think more transparency always helps. Is always a good thing. But yeah, there we go. I'm going to leave you. So thank you all for joining. I want to make sure I didn't miss any super chats. But I much appreciate you all taking the time to support what I do. And thank you, Will I Am. Remember, 15 months. It's Raw Seek. FIAB Nerfing. There we go. Pleasure as always. Thank you all for coming. Camden, Charmander, Clinton, Nikhil, SF, Yard Animal, Priceless Mile, Fabian, Carlos, Joshua, Emily, Liam, Yaramir, David, Tuna, Callum, Outlaw, Jake. Pleasure as always. My name has and will continue to be Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.